Everyone, and welcome back to another video by Battle Masters. I am definitely excited today to share with you guys a video that has been a long time coming, which is going to be the Demon Hunter Mage Tower Challenge. It took me about 4 attempts to get this down. I am going to post that original video unedited for you guys to see as well. And then I'm also going to have a bit of a tutorial so you guys can try to get your set as well before the Mage Tower doesn't exist anymore. So hey, sit back, enjoy the video, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Alright, so what I want to start off with today is actually going to be a little bit about the gear before I get into the talents. The reason for that is because a lot of people say that you have to have certain legendaries, and I am living proof that that's not the case. Especially this late in the game, you could actually have no legendaries and still be just fine, but also, don't get me wrong, the extra legendaries do definitely make a difference and help quite a bit. And what I mean by that is, right now, with an item level of 930, 920, 925, this is well over what the item level should have been, or as far as the set was, for the original purpose of Mage Tower, which was 900. So with that, I think I was at like 929, 930, something like that, and my item level has gone up a little bit because since I've made the video, I've also gotten a couple new pieces of gear. But the legendaries that I had here was Insignia of the Grand Army, and I of course socketed that and enchanted it with Critical Strike, because with the Demon Hunter specifically with crit, that's going to allow you some additional Chaos Strikes, because you'll get some of that energy and that demonic power back. And then the other one was Soul of the Slayer, and the reason I chose this one is because of the additional talent that I get, which of course is going to be the First Blood. Again, enchants and gems, all of this should be Critical Strike to increase your chances of getting some additional Chaos Strikes out of each attack and each rotation. So it's going to be very important to keep that in mind. And so let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other gear. Again, most of everything you want to have enchanted with something that's going to increase your critical strike, or gemmed with something that's going to increase your critical strike. The cloak, I did do 200 agility. That's kind of a given for most. But just in case you're new to the Demon Hunter, or maybe you boosted one and you're just trying to get the appearances before they're not available anymore, this will kind of give you guys a little bit of a glimpse of what I did. Now for the trinkets, I do typically keep a few trinkets on me to switch in and out depending on the types of fights that I'll be doing. And so for this one, I chose as my first trinket is going to be the Forge Fiend's Fabricator. And the reason I chose this one is because I can detonate the mines to do additional damage before Xylem teleports away. So it's a little bit of an extra burst of damage times however many mines are already on him. And then it just kind of helps boost that little bit of extra damage. And then the second one was going to be the Engine of Eradication. This one I chose because if you can keep it up, again, it's kind of a random proc, but if you're able to keep it up, that's almost 5,000 additional agility that's going to be added to your DPS. Now, it can fall off, and if it falls off, it's not that big a deal, but if you are lucky enough to keep it up, it's going to sustain you through potentially the entire fight up until the second and third phases. So let's go ahead and jump into the talents, and I'll show you guys what I chose here. So I'm going to go ahead and switch it back up to what I had at the time. I use a couple different talents based on what I'm doing, so I'm going to flip them back to what they were. Alright, so again, that ring that we talked about earlier, that legendary, I chose it because we're going to get First Blood and Chaos Cleave, so I'm going to go ahead and hold that off for just a little bit. In the meantime, though, let's talk about talent 99. I wanted to do I-Beam generates 35 Fury for every second with its duration, during its duration, and increase that duration by 50% with Blind Fury, because that's what's essentially going to heal you. Without this, it's going to be very difficult to stay alive unless you have certain legendaries that can also help you, but this is your primary generator of health. So whenever you get low on health, you just do the I beam, and then essentially by the time it's done, you're going to be capped off on health no matter how low you were previously. For my 100 talents, what I did is Demonic Appetite. And the reason I did that is because Chaos Strike has 25% chance to spawn an additional Soul Fragment. So again, with stacking all that critical strike from the gear, that's where it becomes really, really important to keep your Fury as high as possible. And I keep calling it Fury, but you guys get the idea. So the more fragments you have, the higher your Fury is always going to sustain. And that's the whole objective, to keep your Fury pool between 25 and 50% as often as possible. And that's going to allow you to put out the most DPS. So for my 102 talents, this is where it's definitely interesting. Now, I chose Chaos Cleave. I'll be honest, it doesn't really do anything necessarily like totally beneficial because it's not AoE. But keep in mind that Chaos Strike hits all enemies for an additional 10% damage. That's including your main target. So you're going to be able to do an additional 10% damage just because you chose this particular talent. First Blood, this is the one that if you don't have that ring, this is what you need right here. That's because it reduces the Fury cost of Blade Dance by 20% and increases its damage by just about 900k. And that's important because it's just an additional piece of rotation that you'll be able to put in, and it'll help you out for your overall damage output while you're trying to move across the field and still do damage at the same time. Some people choose to do Bloodlet because of the phase 2 or phase 3, depending on how you look at it. And that's because whenever you do throw your glaive, because you'll definitely be throwing the glaive to slow down the Void Walkers, you can do a little bit of additional damage as well. So if you prefer to have that little bit of extra damage over the First Blood in your second phase, by all means you can switch that up. So this tier is kind of up to you, but with that ring, I'm able to do more single target damage with my Blade Dance, and I can also get 10% damage out of each Chaos Cleave, or Chaos Strike, excuse me. And then we have Soul Rending. Now this one is a must. You don't have any other choices here. And the reason I say that is because you get 70% leech while Metamorphosis is active. Earlier I mentioned Blind Fury is important, and this is why. While you're in demonic form, you're going to be able to get 70% leech off of that damage, which is massive. Without Soul Rending, you're not going to be able to heal yourself back up, and you might as well go ahead and just call it quits. For the 106 talent, what we have is Nemesis. And the reason I chose Nemesis is because it just gives a flat out damage output every 2 minutes. I think I was able to use mine, 2, maybe 3 times through the fight. And it just beats out Fell Eruption, and it beats out Momentum for my playstyle. Finally, the last 2 tiers we have here is the 108 and 110. 108, honestly, I personally feel you cannot go without Master of the Glaive, and that's because it gives you 2 charges and it snares the enemies by 50%. You guys will see in the video here in just a little bit why that's so important for that last phase. Unleash Power, personally, it's just not viable because you can't move, you can't do anything else while this is going off. And as far as like removing the Chaos Nova and everything like that, like it's not that important because you should have at least 25 to 50% of your Fury available. And then Demon Reborn, this one here is really not that helpful. Every time you invoke Metamorphosis, it resets the cooldowns of I-Beam, Chaos Nova, and Blur. It's just not viable for this particular fight. And then this is kind of what brings everything else together, which is Demonic. Fell Barrage and Chaos Blades, those are not options that are going to be viable for this particular fight. You need to do Demonic because that's where you get additional healing just in case I-Beam doesn't top you off. So with those particular talents in this setup, again, it took me 4 attempts to be able to get this done. And so I can definitely show that it is very effective. And you guys will see I've got the glaives here. I've actually done a little bit extra. And I did 10 Legion bosses from just regular heroics and a couple mythics, and you get this cool purple set. And I kind of like that, so I changed my entire theme of the character to a purple theme. So with that here, we're going to go ahead and take a look at my attempt. That was actually the final attempt. And again, make sure that you do like, subscribe, and share this video for anyone that's trying to get this particular appearance and they haven't quite gotten it yet. Maybe they've been struggling, they just need this video. It'll kind of push them over that edge and get them where they got to be. Alright, now that we've kind of seen what the talents are supposed to look like, at least the talents that worked for me, and now that we've also seen what the gear was that I was doing, again, I was definitely over geared, so if you want kind of an easy run, your best bet is to get as much gear as you can. Let's go ahead and just do a quick run through and breakdown of the actual event. And I'm going to give you guys a bit of a play-by-play, and we're going to kind of let the video play, and then I'm going to pause it at certain points to show you what I did and why I did what I did. So let's go ahead and take a look here. We'll get started, and then we're going to talk about the food buffs and stuff like that, because we haven't talked about that yet, and there's probably a good minute or so here of just kind of wait time. So, of course, the first buff is kind of a given. You'll see over here in the corner that I have the agility potion. You definitely need to have that. That's going to be a good amount of agility. It's going to boost your overall damage, and that's just what's important. As far as the food buff, we're going to go ahead and rewind this here just a second. It's going to be the Hungry Magister. That's going to increase your critical strike by 375. And that's going to put you, again, in a better position to keep getting more of that Fury generation. The other piece is that if you happen to tank, this is going to be no problem for you. If you don't tank, it's going to be kind of a struggle. But the items there that give you that extra little bit of a buff, I think it's like 300, 375 agility or main stat, you'll want to have one of those. So with that should be all the food buffs and all the extra buffs that you'll need. Let's go ahead and take a look and see this opening. Because, of course, we also have the Potion of Prolonged Power and the drums that I started the fight off with because I just wanted to get as much damage as I could initially. And those orbs you'll see right there that are green, that's the trinket that I was referring to earlier that's going to increase my overall stats by about 5,000, close to it. So let's go ahead and watch the video here. We did see the spikes. I'm going to talk about those spikes next time they show up for you. Alright, so you guys will notice here that these spikes came down. It's called Razor Ice. What happens during this stage is that he's going to teleport away from you. He's going to drop these ice shards all around you, and he's going to cast the same thing as a Mage Blizzard on top of that as well. So if you just stand there, you're going to get killed. Now here's the tricky part. If you touch any one of these Razor Ices, you also instantly get killed. That's your maximum hit points and damage. It's like 110% of damage. So even if you got some cooldowns, blur, or whatever that reduces damage, and you try to run through them, it will actually kill you instantly. So what you have to do for this is wait for that little mini stun to go away, because you get stunned for about 2, maybe 3 seconds. Do a double jump, and then you're going to dash out of the area. And then you want to try to aim yourself back towards Xylem, so that way you'll be able to move out of the way. Now with that, you also saw that what I did was the Chaos Nova. The reason I did that is because that way all of those extra little shards are going to come out for me, and as I get out of the area, I'm going to replenish my health. So any damage I did take while I was in the area, getting rained on with that blizzard, it's all going to be restored or close to restored by the time I get out and back over to Xylem. The other thing I want to point out is these little bomb-looking things right here. This is my secondary trinket. This is the one I was referring to earlier that I can just throw some extra damage out there whenever I get a couple of these built up and right before he teleports away. And you'll see there, that's whenever I blew them up because I wasn't sure if he was about to port, but I didn't want to miss the chance. Alright, Chaos Nova, jump out, and you guys will see that put me back at full health, and I'm back into the fight. And it's very important, if you do have my trinket, that you do collect those orbs, because it can give you a good 15 to 20 seconds of uptime of, again, close to 5,000. We're going to pause the video here. About 5,000 additional agility. So I'm going to back this up just a little bit, because this is what held me back previously whenever I was trying to do this some time ago. And that is whenever he teleports away. You guys are going to see it's called the Arcane Phase. And what you want to do as soon as it says that, as soon as DBM tells you, hey, it's about to happen, you want to turn yourself around and face the Eye of Eternity. And what you're looking for is there's a little twinkle right here. And that little twinkle, we're going to replay that. As soon as you see that little twinkle, you need to head in that direction. Because what happens is all of these mirror images will simultaneously cast a spell. And if they get that spell off, it's pretty much a one-shot. Your other option is to actually go kill one of the shades, which will put a shield around you, and you can work your way towards the sparkle. But we're going to take a look at that one more time. For those of you that may struggle, or maybe you have low graphics and you can't see very well, we'll take a look. Okay, and I missed it again, but that little sparkle and twinkle right there, and it turns into a bit of a shimmering mist, and that's how you know where you want to go. So I just do a quick dash over there, and as soon as you get to him, you don't have to attack him or anything. As soon as you get to him, then he's going to reveal himself, all the mirror images go away, and he begins to cast Shadow Barrage. Now, for anyone that's made it to this point, you might remember to unlock this, you have to go into Xylem's Tower, and this thing, if you weren't ready for it, probably killed you more than once. And that is, if you hit any one of these orbs, that's it. It's game over. You can try again another time. So you just have to basically, don't worry about DPSing through this phase, just worry about avoiding these orbs. You'll see I went way far out of the way because my point at that level is just to survive. And that is the final ability. Now, I managed to get this taken off very quickly, but even still, he was able to get a stack of a buff right here. And what this buff does is it increases his damage by 10% for the remainder of the fight. Okay? So anytime he starts casting that spell, it's called Draw Power, you've got to interrupt him immediately, so that way he does not get continuous stacks. Alright, we'll go ahead and watch through the rest of this because it's just a rinse and repeat until we get him down to about 10%. Alright, we're getting him down to the lower percentages, have probably about 10-15% left. I could have used another pot, or I could have used the drums, or I could have done something like that, just to push him to the edge, because remember, I had only been to this phase, I think, once or twice up to this point. I was just trying to push it to get to that next level, but I did hold off, and then I did end up getting him down to the 10% mark, which is where he'll teleport to a different side of the map, and then you'll continue the fight on phase 2. Alright, so on this phase, what you want to do is you want to kind of position yourself close to around, right behind him. I kind of angled myself a little bit so I could get off my metamorphosis. But on this phase, it's important to note that what you want to do is do as much damage as you possibly can in the first 15 seconds. So that's why I did drums and I did my potion here. Because of this little part here, you're going to see the ground starts to change color. And as it changes color, It's basically like that Paladin Consecrate, but if you touch it, it's going to do about 15% of your health in damage per second. So I'm pausing the video here real quick so that way you can see this particular spell, because I messed up on this way back whenever I very first tried this at like 750 gear score. And that is I interrupted him. If you interrupt him, essentially what he does is he instantly casts the 3 Shadow Fiends, or the blueberries if you're a warlock and that's what you call them, and it will heal him about 15 to 20% per entity that gets back to the boss. So what you want to do is get as far away from him as possible and wait for this debuff right here to fall off. Okay? And this is where those glaives come in handy with being able to slow it. So you get as far back as you can, and then these 3 are going to spawn, and you just got to start slowing them immediately. You want to start doing as much damage as you can and kill them before they get back to the boss here. So this was a little bit of a struggle for me, because as you can see, once they get to a certain point, that's it. They get too far in and you can't get them before they escape. And that's the mechanics of this particular fight right here. You're just going to keep on circling around the edge, doing as much damage as possible, and running away whenever he casts that ability. Now, based on how much damage you're doing, you can have a maximum of 3 different rotations before the entire floor is covered in this goop, and then you're essentially you're going to have to 2-shot him, or that's it. As soon as you kill him, though, the ground is uncorrupted and the fight is over, so you won't have to worry about getting the killing blow and then dying and then not getting the appearance or something like that. It's also important to note that the beams that come out of the Eye of Eternity right here will actually keep you back. They will hold you back. If you try to go through them, you will not be able to. So you'll see here that these 3 were just getting to that point, and I went around to the front and managed to get them, and I did have to suffer a little bit of damage to get them taken care of, so I just zipped out real quick and then continued the damage, and this was where I had to do my final push. I just had to get him knocked out, and I had to make sure that this was going to be it. Because one more rotation, you guys can already see that over half of the entire platform is completely covered. So I hit every cooldown I had, and then I just knocked him out. Alright, so now we're going to go back and talk to Xylem, and he's going to be his cocky, arrogant self as usual. Alright, so at this point it's just going to be a little bit of LARPing. He's going to, again, be super cocky and arrogant. You're going to teleport yourself back to Dalaran, and then you're going to see the appearance. So we'll go ahead and see what that looks like here. I'm going to go ahead and just skip forward a little bit. Alright, and that is it, guys. So that is my guide here. Again, it took me 4 attempts to get it done. A big part of that was just being a higher item level. The other part of that was just really taking it pretty seriously as far as those mechanics. But once you get those mechanics down, they are simple. Just expect to die at least a couple of times before you get it down, and stick to it. Because like I said, we got probably, I'd say 3 to 5 more Mage Tower periods, and then we're going to be giving up the artifacts. So you're either going to have to pick somebody different to level up with, or you're going to have to give up the Mage Tower concept. But again, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Definitely give me a like, subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this, and feel free to leave some comments too. I am pretty new to this, but I definitely love it. So good, bad, or indifferent, I definitely want to get that feedback. Have a great night, everybody.